In the early 2000s, the USC Trojans were a college football dynasty. What was their secret? Their All-American quarterback, their electrifying running backs, or some guy who rode the bench named Owen Hansen?
Yeah, Owen, he may not have done as much on the football field, but he was probably the MVP outside of the Coliseum walls. Turns out that Owen was smuggling steroids.
If you're like, I want 3 pounds of frankincense, he's like, I got a guy.
He drifted into some darker pastures.
Say hello to my little friend.
He just went full steam ahead as if this was a major at USC. Drug, empire, kingpin. Let's do that.
My name is Owen Hansen, federal inmate number 50825. I'm some surfer kid from Redondo Beach. What have I gotten myself into?
Thanks for watching San Diego Right Now at 5:30. I'm Stephanie Simmons, and today we are joined by a special guest with a story that is so unbelievable you would only expect to see something like this on TV. In fact, you just did, but it is also real. Joining us now is the cocaine quarterback himself, Owen Hansen. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie.
You have so many incredible ties to Southern California, and for people who haven't seen the series on Prime Video yet, we have to start from the beginning because this story takes so many twists and turns, and now you're out of prison, so we're gonna get there, but we need to start from the top. So, Redondo Beach guy, how did this get going?
Beach volleyball player. You know, grew up playing beach volleyball, surfing with my dad in Redondo Beach. And I remember my parents divorced when I was young. I was 8 years old. And my dad's like, I started to cry. I was like, come on, Pops, what's happening? I didn't know what was going on. And Dad's like, we don't cry in this family. Grab the volleyballs, get your surfboard, we're going down to the beach. And volleyball became my life. Literally, like every day I would go down to the beach and play volleyball.
And sports saved you in a way. It saved you, and then it was the fall and the demise, essentially, but that really got you going, and it gave you a purpose. So when you started playing volleyball, and by the way, can I just say, I watched the 3-part series. I love your dad. Like, your dad is my favorite person, and we'll talk about him in just a little bit because he stood by you through all of this. So you get really good, and you're a force. How tall are you?
6'3".
6'3", okay. That's quite impressive on the beaches of the South Bay. This is the South Bay north of us here in San Diego. So we're talking Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach. Everybody plays volleyball.
The Mecca.
Yes,
Mecca
it is the Mecca. So how did USC come about then?
Listen, I started getting offers to play at BYU, University of Hawaii, Long Beach State, Pepperdine, and finally when the USC letter came and they offered me a 2/3 scholarship, I looked at my dad and he's like, let's do it. He says, that's the best school in the world, right? I'm like, I remember wearing cardinal and gold growing up as a kid in diapers, and my dad had me in like a USC football t-shirt. And I was like, yeah, we got to go to USC.
To be accepted, and there's two ways. I mean, you could pay to get it. Celebrities' kids go there, but also to be an athlete, to have earned your way through the athletic program. I mean, not even knowing about football, you turn on college football and you see USC, you see those Trojans on the field, and you stop because everybody knows USC football, but it started with volleyball. So walk us through there when things kind of got sticky.
It got sticky my sophomore year. I was playing behind an All-American, Brooke Billings, legend, probably the greatest opposite hitter ever to play at USC, Olympic volleyball player. And I was playing behind him, and I remember Coach Turhan called me in the office, and he says, hey, Hansen, I'm sorry to break you the news, but you're going to get cut. I said, what do you mean I'm get cut? He says, I'm going to redshirt you. You got to work on your vertical jump. You got to work on your arm strength. You're just not good enough for this team. And I was devastated. I had that same feeling I had when my mom left and my father and mom separated. Now I just lost my volleyball family. I was like, man, I was bummed. And then I remember I was like, man, what am I going to do now? And I just started to train in the gym day in, day out, twice a day. And eventually one of the coaches from the USC volleyball team, one of the strength and conditioning coaches, was the same strength and conditioning coach for the football team.
And they were eyeballing you in your arms.
Me.
Yeah.
I was getting big.
Yeah.
And I remember Coach Char said, "Hey, Hanson, why don't you try out for the USC football team?" I said, "Coach, I've never played football in my life." I said, "My dad was so strict, he wouldn't let me play football because it was so dangerous."
Yeah.
But he says, "Hanson, come on, you're an athlete." And I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, "Man, you know what? I'm not only an athlete, but guess what? I'm an adult now, and my father can't get upset. Like, it's my choice." And I remember the next week I tried out for the football team. And there's 50 guys, all Americans from high school and junior college. And I showed up in my volleyball shoes. Everyone else showed up in football cleats. I was like, "Oh man, I messed that one up," right? But what am I to expect, right? I've never played the sport. And I remember we had like a cone drill, which I've been doing cones my whole life, and I'm running through them like nothing. And then we get thrown, 5 footballs, and I catch 3 out of the 5, the first 3 footballs I've ever caught in my life. And then the vertical jump comes, and I'm a volleyball player. That was easy.
Yeah.
36, second jump was 37 inches. And then I remember they had the 4.640, and they had the 40-yard dash, and this is where you really determine if you're an athlete or not to make the football team. And I remember all the coaches, Coach Carroll, Norm Chow, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, all the greats.
The names that everyone knows in football, and you stopped them dead in their tracks.
They're literally with their stopwatches, and they're watching me. 4.640. This is like an NFL combine run.
So you had the talent, and so this is where it takes a turn, because a lot of those guys, they come from money. Yes, they're athletes as well. I mean, we're talking about, the Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, all those people where we know those names even if we don't know football. And you were with these guys. But it was, you almost, what I sensed in the series when I was watching is you fit in, but you didn't. So is that where it took a turn? It was like this need to belong, like you offered something, they needed you. These people can pay for anything, they can buy anything, but they needed you. You offered something that they couldn't get.
I did, and when I went to USC, I felt...
And we're talking about the drugs,
yes,
which you see in this 3-part series.
Yes, yeah. So when I went to USC, I already stood out, right? I'm going. My dad's a construction worker, and all my fraternity brothers, all my teammates, they all have the American Express black cards, the Mercedes, the BMW. I'm like, man, I do not fit in. And I remember when I got to the football team, I felt the same way, and I literally just started smuggling at a small scale, performance-enhancing drugs across the border. And it became my hustle. And guys, the athletes would ask, "Hey, I got an injury. How do I fix it?" "Oh, I need to gain some weight. How do I do it?" "Oh, I need to cut up." And I became this like black market doctor. And guys would come to me and say, "Hey, I need to study for my test. You got any ideas?" I said, "We'll prescribe you Adderall."
The need had to have been addictive, and this sense of power for you too. You couldn't stop the need of the want. People wanted you, and you gave them something, and you were good at it. But you're also a good guy, which is this interesting mix.
I couldn't say no. That was my problem.
Yeah.
Right. Like, "Oh, you can't sleep. I'm going to prescribe you some Xanax." Like,
Yeah.
And I had people come and ask for the strangest things, and I would figure out a way to get them. Like Lou Ferrigno says in the documentary, he says, "This guy had a guy for everything." And if I couldn't find it, I'd go ask a guy, right? And
yeah, you were friends with the Incredible Hulk's son.
Yes.
And that's the other thing for people who, live in Southern California, especially in Los Angeles. You wind up, you go to one party, you take a turn, and you're around all these celebrities, and then you're cool by association, and then they want something from you. So you look right here, we're showing video and photo of Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian.
There's Mike Tyson, my good friend.
Oh, you still talk to Mike to this
Mike,
day?
I haven't seen him since I've got out, but I wrote him a letter when I was inside. There's Chuck Liddell, the UFC fighter. But
so many A-listers, and they needed you, and then you graduate, and then what happened?
I literally say no, and I say, okay, that was fun. I was using this money to keep up with the Joneses and survive college, right? Because I didn't have any money. And then when I got to college, I got that 6-figure income, 6-figure salary working for a real estate development company. And I literally was so happy. My dad was so happy. My mother was just like, she was just like, "Oh my gosh, my son."
They didn't know what you were doing in college, though.
No one
Okay.
knew. Yeah, it's
and
not
then
something you tell your
You
parents.
seemingly got this really nice professional gig.
Yeah.
And then that went south with the market.
That went south. The market crashed 2008, right? and I lost my job. And
As a lot of people did.
I lost my job, and now I'm scrambling. I remember I had those USC connections. I remembered I had a bunch of friends that were now in the NFL. I'm like, what's the perfect job for me? I used that Rolodex. It was to be a bookie. I was like, I love sports. I watch sports. My friends play sports. All my fraternity brothers gamble on sports. Why don't I become a bookie and start becoming a bookie for all my friends at USC?
And you were good at it
I
fast.
was really good at it.
Okay, and now the addiction comes back.
The rush, right?
Yes.
You're playing literally. Now I tell people it's the same rush as going and playing in front of 90,000 people at the Coliseum when you win that game. When you win a bet and you keep winning, it's that same feeling. Like we're athletes, we're adrenaline junkies, right? We like the rush. And I mean, you think about all these NBA players that are getting in trouble right now, that are getting indicted. They don't need the money. They're playing for the adrenaline.
Yeah,
it
it is the adrenaline component. And then when do you shut it off?
And it's hard to stop.
The line. So what point was it? Because then enter the cartel. We'll speed it up to that point after you started becoming successful after the real estate. What point was there a line where you crossed the line and you couldn't uncross it?
As soon as I started working in organized crime with the sports betting, because it was illegal at the time, I would say that's probably where the illegal activity, just crossing the line is enough, right? Because it's hard to go back to that 9 to 5 once you're making this kind of money. But then I really crossed the line when I started taking bets from the cartel. And it wasn't meant to be, but I was so, like I said, I can't say no. I don't care who you are. If you want to gamble with me and pay me, great. And if you win, guess what? I'm going to pay you. It doesn't matter who's on the other side of the betting application to me.
Right.
Everybody in the world should be allowed to bet.
Yeah, it's another rush too, I'm sure, because now you've gotten the attention of the cartel, and by the series, you know, they say you were good at it and they liked you. They thought you were doing a good job. So let's speed up the story a little bit. There's so many different layers here. Take us to the arrest and what happened, because this is another Southern California connection. You got arrested by the feds here in San Diego. Tell us about that day. So, and you were with the cartel, and it went to different continents as well before you got arrested.
Yes, we went international. We were in Australia. And the day of my arrest was September 9th, 2015, at the Aviara Country Club in Carlsbad, not too far from here. And I'll never forget it. I had a 7:10 tee time, and it was with this guy that was laundering my money. And I've been playing golf with him for 6 months now. And he was laundering my money from Australia to the United States, and we were buds, right? He was gambling on my website. We were drinking cocktails, going to dinner. He was using an encrypted phone like I used. And I remember I showed up to the Aviara Country Club, and the whole parking lot was empty. And I was like, what's going on? This is weird. Something's up. And I remember I pulled my clubs out of the back of the trunk, and I turned around, and my caddy said, "Mr. Hansen, how you doing?" And he was shaking. I was like, oh, this is not good.
Was he in on it too?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
yeah. So I
okay.
I was like, this is not good. And as soon as I go to my passenger seat to grab my bag with my money and my encrypted phones, because I plan to gamble with this guy. We were gambling for 6 months on the golf course. I go to grab it, and I turn around, and there's 15 FBI agents that come out of the bush. There's an FBI helicopter in the sky. And literally, I hear this voice, the Australian authorities, and they say, "Mr. Hansen, you remember me?" with this Australian accent. And I knew right then and there my life was over. I was like, oh man, I'm in trouble.
Cooked, yeah.
I'm in trouble. But I'll tell you what, when they put those handcuffs on me, most people ask me, were you scared? The cartel knows you're arrested? I'm like, to be honest, Stephanie, for the first time in 10 years, I felt relieved, because now I knew that it was all over. I didn't have to look over my shoulders. I didn't have to work for the cartel anymore. I didn't have to accept any more bets from A-list celebrities. I could finally say sayonara.
And that chapter is over. So many more chapters to get to. In fact, on that note, we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk with a DEA agent who knows Owen oh too well. Welcome back, everybody. Another layer of Owen's story involves a now retired federal agent. Steve Murphy is one of the men responsible for taking down Pablo Escobar, and he also knows all about the cocaine quarterback. Earlier today, I spoke with Steve on Zoom and learned how he and Owen first met.
Well, there is an annual gang conference in Southern California called the Southern California Gang Conference. I've been supporting them for a number of years now, and I'm actually an honorary member of their board of directors. And each year they bring in a surprise guest. They don't even tell me until I get there. And this year it happened to be Owen Hansen. Now, I read Owen's book before I went because I have a weekly true crime podcast, and I wanted to interview Owen in person while I was in San Diego. And the guys that run the conference, they made that possible for an in-person interview. So that's how I met Owen. We spent 3 hours doing a podcast interview. We took a lunch break, and then we went on stage for 2 hours.
What do you have to say now about he's out and he is really trying to help people with a message? And you said you worked against bad guys, but from what I've done with my research and talking with some of his friends in the past, knowing about that, they said he really is a good guy. So when you have somebody who is a quote unquote good guy in prison, did the time, is now released, how important is that for society to have someone come out and talk with college students, talk with children about their message of staying away from drugs?
Well, I'll give you an example. I'm an old man. I can go in and talk to college kids and high school kids, which I do. I've been honored to speak at high school graduation several times. We were on the college university speaking circuit for a long time. They listen to our story, but they want to know about Narcos. They want to know about the TV show.
Right.
They don't really care to listen to an old man. I just have a story to tell. When you bring in an athlete who was a two-time winner of a national football championship with the University of Southern California, look at him. He looks like a stud. He continues to work out. He lives the healthy lifestyle. He's creating a product that goes along with that lifestyle, being the high-protein ice cream. Who doesn't like ice cream, right? Everybody likes ice cream. But they will listen to him. He's a good-looking guy. He comes across very believable, very honest. I know when we ask him to do things, he doesn't hesitate. It's whatever you need, whatever you need. Sometimes that makes me a little nervous because that's what bad guys will tell you.
Maybe that's why he was But you are not a bad guy. You are a good guy. And by the way, you can learn more about Steve by listening to his podcast, Game of Crimes. He had wonderful things to say about you. So I want to talk about the athletes in just a second, but go there. So how does a good guy do bad things?
That's a tough question. You know, you get put in a room or, you know, a situation with bad people, right? And, you know, that's, once you go down that path of illegal activity, it's hard to go back.
And you pled guilty and you were sentenced to how many years and you served how many?
I was sentenced to 255 months and I served just under 10 years.
And that was enough time to be alone with your thoughts?
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of thinking. And a lot of time for, I would say, for rehabilitation, right? I remember when the judge sentenced me to that time, and he says, it's time to rehabilitate. And I took that serious. I remember I got into prison, I was like, okay, I remember what Judge Hayes said. He wants me to rehabilitate, and that's what I'm gonna do. I got my master's degree. I started teaching GED classes so people could earn their GED in prison. I wrote my book, The California Kid. I obviously did the documentary with Mark Wahlberg and Unrealistic Ideas, Cocaine Quarterback. And every day I would work out twice a day like I was in college, playing college football again. And
do you feel changed?
Oh, no doubt. I feel like a new man. That life I lived, if I would have kept living it, I would have died, no doubt. And thankfully guys like Steve Murphy and the FBI took me down, and it was the biggest blessing in my life. They saved my life.
And now you're doing such good things for other college athletes. So we just saw you speak to USC, and you were here yesterday speaking with University of San Diego athletes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, the basketball coach, Coach Lav, invited me and speak to his team, and the baseball team had me, and there they are right there. I just told these guys how it is. I've been in their shoes, and this could happen to anyone. What happened to me could happen to anyone, whether you're a walk-on or a star quarterback. It doesn't matter. And I let the guys know, listen, I'm going to give you a scenario, and I broke it down. You know, little things that athletes can relate to, so they can understand that I've been in their shoes. And just one wrong turn could cost you 10 years in your life. You know, it just started with one bet, right? I started doing the sports betting. Later, it kept hedging my bets and parlaying it to bigger bets. And I'm playing for that rush just like athletes play for. And they can relate because we like to win.
Did you scare them too with the prison story though? I mean, you worked with the cartel and they were shaking your hand, the cartel were, but prison's a whole different story.
Yeah, I told them why I still have PTSD, and I give them situations of murders I've seen in prisons, guys hanging in themselves, guys overdosing on drugs, riots with different races, the political view you see in prison that you would never see on the real world. It's awful. It's a place you never want to be. And they're looking at me with their jaws on the floor, and they're like, wow, they couldn't believe it.
You know, it's scared to ask. I question myself if I should ask you about that because I know there's a little bit of trauma that comes with spending 10 years in prison, I'm sure. So not to trigger, but only to help, you are really helping people sharing your story.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can, right? And I tell people if I can get one guy on a basketball team to avoid going the route I did, then I did my job. I just want one.
And you did something great in prison as well. You came up with this. Show us what you're doing now. So this all started with a mop bucket in prison.
Yeah, this was
and it turned into a business.
Yeah, my hustle literally in prison was making protein ice cream. It was by accident. I literally started making these in a mop bucket. And when I got out of prison, I reached out to my buddy Roland, and he's like, dude, you got to keep this story going. It's awesome. He says, there's nobody that makes protein ice cream.
So did you work in the kitchen or something? I'm missing, okay, you saw, there's a dirty mop bucket? Like I don't.
So in prison, for refrigeration.
Right there, okay, we're seeing it right here.
Yeah, so in prison for refrigeration, you need ice. So you put ice in a mop bucket and you utilize that. So right here, what I do is I take my protein shake and I mix it with milk, bananas, and peanut butter.
Okay.
And I literally shake it up, and it's my protein shake. And one day, on accident, I put salt in my mop bucket because we were out of, see, there's my mop bucket.
Okay.
We were out of ice. We had like 2 inches of ice. And so my celly says, just throw some salt on there and it'll get cold.
Okay.
When I got back from my workout, I literally opened up my protein shake and it's rock hard. It froze.
And you're like, ooh, let me try that.
Yeah,
I'm trying this.
like
I'm opening
protein
it up
ice cream.
here.
I need one too.
Okay, yeah, here's yours.
That's my favorite
thing.
Yeah.
You have such a business mentality. It's that business mindset. It got you in trouble, but now you're doing good things with it. Where can people get this?
I tell people anywhere in the United States, California, iceprotein.com, direct to consumer. Probiotics, no added sugar. The only sugar from there is from the strawberries. 20 grams of protein. Monk fruit's the sweetener. I can ship anywhere in the United States.
I don't taste the protein either. Too bad I'm too old now. I feel like USC tracks calling my name, okay? Not really. But that's what these make you feel like.
Well, everyone needs protein, right?
Yes,
everyone.
they do. It's wonderful. I just want to ask, on this note too, what is the first thing you ate when you got out of prison besides these?
Mark Wahlberg's team took me to sushi.
Oh, sushi?
Sushi.
What an odd choice. I thought you were going to say In-N-Out.
Listen, I wanted Mastros. I'm not going to lie.
Okay,
I wanted Master
yeah.
Steak, but they said we had it. They had to get me from federal prison.
Get this guy some Mastros.
They had to get me from federal prison to the halfway house.
I don't mean to cut you off. We appreciate your time, Owen Hansen. Thank you guys for watching. We are out of time. We could talk for so much longer. Thank you for all the good you're doing, and we appreciate you sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great day.